It's hard to imagine that everything started in a simple room with just a computer. Our protagonist was just relaxing after a long day, playing games and having a cold beer. After drifting off to sleep, he was shocked to wake up inside the very game world he was enjoying. In this strange land, a white-haired lady calls him Lord Kadam and warns of powerful monsters nearby. Our main character, Kadam, doesn't seem worried at all and says he'll take care of them in a flash. With that, he charges headfirst into the massive horde of creatures coming his way. In the blink of an eye, our fighter is right in the middle of the enemies, ready to strike. These demonic beings look anything but friendly and are prepared to fight back with everything. Moving faster than the eye can see, Kadam takes down one of the foes with a single vertical blow. Without wasting a second, he continues his sweep, eliminating several monsters at once. Within moments, the creatures begin to fall to the ground, no longer moving. As the dust settles, the result of the battle is revealed with countless foes defeated. Kneeling in the center of the destruction, our hero looks a bit worn out. However, he quickly gets back on his feet, showing he still has plenty of energy left for a fight. He remarks that the demon realm is exactly like this, with high-level threats right from the start. The journey to the archdemon will be much tougher than he first imagined. Putting that thought aside, he turns around as if something else just crossed his mind. He knows for sure he's in for a lecture from Melissa, while even more monsters show up. Before him, another massive horde of demonic creatures emerges, ready for another round. Suddenly, a girl with reddish hair screams the warrior's name with all her might. This is the mage Melissa, and she is furious since she warned him not to run off alone. At that moment, a blonde-haired knight grabs her shoulder to get her attention. This blonde knight, named Gale, is also busy fighting off several stone golems. Introducing himself as Hero Gale, he readies his sword to continue the struggle. He tells Melissa to save the lecture for later since the monsters are the priority right now. Melissa complains that Gale is way too serious as a hero and finds it quite suffocating. Meanwhile, the white-haired lady offers a prayer, hoping the battle spirit protects them. She's worried that Lord Kadam is pushing himself too hard and needs to be careful. Taking advantage of her distraction, a monster lunges to attack her from behind. Luckily, a man who looks like a priest appears and tells the girl Cyril not to worry. Priest Gordon calms Cyril down, saying that Kadam surely has a plan of his own. They decide to deal with the monsters first before having a word with the warrior. Elsewhere, our protagonist introduces himself while looking at the ruins around him. He and his allies are the vanguard of the hero's party, destined to defeat the archdemon. This character is the great warrior of Athala, the god of combat and wilderness. But a deep secret lies behind this fighter that no one there seems to know. In reality, he is a possessor from another world who entered this game character's body. Ironically, he was just a support character in the game called Hamad Warrior. The game's main plot was simple: a hero gathering friends to take down the final boss. Many people might enjoy an adventure like this with such unique characters. However, for a modern person who had never even harmed a chicken, this reality was brutal. To survive in this place, he had to do things he never thought possible. The world he landed in was far more cruel than anything he had ever seen before. Our warrior has a unique berserker trait that buffs him when he consumes demon fluids. With that in mind, he thinks he just needs to take out a few more monsters. If he can eliminate them all, he can finally say goodbye to this terrible world. He needs to end this conflict to finally be free of this place once and for all. Completely covered in the fluids of his enemies, the fighter seems to be losing himself. His only wish is to leave this hellish realm as soon as possible, even by a single day. He wants to get out of there faster and faster, without caring about anything else. Eventually, he stands atop a mountain of defeated creatures he took down himself. He seems to have become like a demon as well, consumed by his thirst for battle. At that moment, a new creature with a feminine appearance emerges to face him. Our hero glares at the demons with deep hatred in his glowing red eyes. Completely unstable, he screams that he will devour every last one of them. He promises to wipe out absolutely everything in his way, without exception. He even vows to drink their essence to satisfy his uncontrollable rage. But suddenly, a bright light shines, and a voice begs Lord Kadam to stop immediately. The light seems to affect him, and the young man looks up in surprise at who called. It appears the mage Melissa was injured and is using magic to try and calm him down. Even in his fury, the warrior recognizes his friend and calls out her name. He can't believe what he almost did and hopes it isn't true. That unique berserker skill is slowly making him lose his grip on reality. The young man wonders if he's reached the point where he can't even recognize his friends. What was once just a game description is now a real madness piercing his mind. The demon essence he used to find gross now feels sweet and consumes him entirely. This intense battle lust is slowly eating away at his conscience. He worries about what will happen if he can't suppress this madness and loses his mind. Before that happens, he must defeat the archdemon and end this once and for all. At that moment, Melissa hugs him tightly from behind to bring him back to his senses. The mage says everything is okay and asks the warrior not to blame himself. She says it's now their turn to protect him, and he simply apologizes to her. Seeing this, Cyril and Gordon approach to offer support to their leader. The two promise to do whatever it takes so he doesn't lose himself to the madness. Gordon even jokes that he'll knock some sense into him if necessary. Just then, Hero Gale approaches, stepping over a fallen foe and asks if the break is over. The blonde knight says if everyone has rested enough, it's time to keep moving. He extends a hand to Kadum, saying they must defeat the archdemon together. Our protagonist looks at Gale's hand, still feeling a heavy sense of guilt. Accepting the help, they continue the journey that has left their souls in pieces. Finally, after a very long time, they reach their goal and the final battle begins. The warrior is about to deliver the finishing blow to the giant red demon. The massive creature roars in pain as our hero's attack lands perfectly. He swings his axe with incredible power, creating a whirlwind of pure destruction. Gale watches the scene with a look of relief, saying the long struggle is finally over. Such a powerful strike completely finished the archdemon on the spot. Without its core, the great demon's body slowly begins to turn into dust. As the fight ends, Melissa stands still, watching the dust settle on the battlefield. She can't believe her eyes and wonders if everything is truly finished. Suddenly, a hand touches her shoulder, startling her since she wasn't expecting it. It was Gordon who says that by the grace of Elga, it seems the fight is over. The mage still looks shocked and repeats to herself that this is really the end. But out of nowhere, a strong light shines in the sky, frightening the girl. This intense glow illuminates the entire battlefield in a mysterious and divine way. Confused by what's happening, everyone looks up, trying to make sense of it. Sorrel then screams desperately for her leader, Lord Kadam. The warrior's axe lies on the ground, and his silhouette is running toward the light. Gale yells for his friend to stop since they have no idea what's inside that glow. The protagonist pauses for a moment without turning back to his companions. He just glances sideways to look at his friends one last time. With a smile, he says it was an honor to be with them in person and not through a screen. And just like that, he vanishes into the light while Gale screams his name in despair. A golden light blinds everyone while the knight still tries to reach his friend. The light is so intense that Cyril loses her balance and falls off a nearby cliff. The priestess hits the ground hard and lies there, unable to move from the pain. When the dust finally settles, she is sitting alone in a completely desolate land. With a sad expression, she calls out her leader's name once more. Meanwhile, our hero walks through a dark void with lights on the floor. He thinks nothing has changed and wonders what to do first when he returns. His plans are simple: have a cold beer, sleep, and never play a game like this again. He feels bad for not saying a proper goodbye but accepts he'll never see them again. So he decides it's time to say a final farewell to the great warrior Kadam. In front of him, a cross-shaped light appears, which he calls the exit to reality. The young man thinks he'll be free once he passes through, but he's suddenly shocked. With a sweating face, he can't believe what he sees and thinks it's all a dream. The glowing cross stands before him like a divine revelation. His expression shifts completely, and he begins to laugh uncontrollably. He throws his head back, letting out a laugh filled with despair and madness. Before his eyes, the words New Game Plus and Resetting Game appear. The scene changes, showing Gale leading a group of soldiers with a wagon. As the game restarts, we see our protagonist with his hands fully shackled. He's in a long line of prisoners, being escorted by several soldiers. The other inmates complain. One claims innocence while another says he only stole a ring. Annoyed by the noise, one of the guards orders everyone to shut up immediately. Losing his patience, the soldier hits an older man to demand respect. The guard grumbles that the trash is being too loud today, which really bothers him. At that moment, another prisoner approaches the official, claiming to be innocent. Turning to the man, the soldier asks who he thinks he is to speak up like that. The young man explains he never sold demonic items and that he was framed. The official just stares at him silently, appearing not to care at all. The man thinks there's always someone framing an innocent person to look better. In the distance, Gale's on his horse, and the man notices how young the paladin is. The guard smiles maliciously since his own head would be on the line if he messed up. He then asks if the prisoner dares to doubt a paladin of Elga, scaring him. The soldier says if he's innocent, he'll be freed, and orders him back to the line. Frustrated, the man turns around and walks back to his spot among the prisoners. The guard thinks it's a pity, but since a paladin accused him, he won't survive. Leaving the merchant aside, the soldier turns his attention to the rest of the line. It is then revealed that our protagonist was right behind the man who spoke up. The soldier wonders how they managed to capture such a powerful-looking barbarian. Our hero walks calmly among the others, showing no emotion at all. With a serious gaze, the fighter wonders what on earth just happened. He feels his body is familiar, but all the power he once had is gone. It seems the madness and guilt that once consumed him have also vanished. Based on the New Game Plus text, he understands that the game has restarted. Even so, he lies on the ground, still confused about the situation he's in. He reflects that the game didn't even start in this strange way in reality. Suddenly, an old man also tied up in the line catches the protagonist's eye. The elderly man reaches out and offers some strange roots to the great warrior. He tells the young man to chew on those to make the trip less boring. The protagonist stays silent, just observing the old man who offered the roots. The old man explains he was once helped by barbarians, and the lad reminds him of them. Because of this, our hero accepts the gift despite his hands being shackled. The warrior asks how the old man was caught, but he says he doesn't know. Looking thoughtful, the elderly man simply says he understands the situation. Kadam mentions that paladins hate heretics, but believing another god isn't a crime. Surprised, the old man asks if there's an empire, since he doesn't know Lucania. Our hero remembered Lucania as a kingdom, but the old man says that was ages ago. He wonders if he's in a parallel world and asks where they are being taken. The old man explains they are headed to the capital for a trial. The protagonist feels relieved, thinking he won't be eliminated right away. Shocked, the old man asks how he could possibly find that a relief. He explains that the Inquisitors are psychopaths who will treat him like a toy. The old man continues to describe the terrible things that might happen there. Suddenly, Gale rides up and hits the old man with the handle of his weapon. The blow is so strong that the man falls to the ground unconscious and hurt. The paladin warns that anyone insulting Elga's agents will pay with their life. With a smirk, the blonde knight seems quite pleased with what he just did. He then moves his horse closer to our protagonist, who is watching it all. The hero asks if the barbarian was the one who caused all that noise. Gale says if the big guy doesn't want to end up like the old man, he should beg. The knight adds that if the young man begs for mercy, he'll let him live. The protagonist just glares at the paladin with a mocking smile, provoking him. Furious, the blonde guy screams, asking how a simple heretic dares to mock him. Calling it blasphemy, he readies his sword to attack the defenseless prisoner. The tip of the blade comes close to our hero's eye, but he doesn't flinch. Even with death so close, the warrior keeps that slight smile on his face. The paladin is completely shocked by the prisoner's lack of reaction. In a swift move, the barbarian grabs the sword blade with his shackled hands. Gale screams in surprise and pain as the big guy holds the weapon with brute force. The paladin gets even more furious and demands the prisoner let go immediately. Our hero says if that's what he wants, fine, and releases the shining blade. With a single push, the big guy sends the knight and his horse backward. Gale calls him a cursed heretic and vows to judge him right there for his crime. The blonde knight's eyes are filled with hate and shock at his opponent's strength. Ignoring the threats, the barbarian leaps over the paladin in an impressive way. He lands with a massive impact that kicks up a huge cloud of dust. Once the dust settles, the protagonist is standing while the blonde guy is down. Even the hero's horse couldn't handle the force and is lying motionless. The young paladin is also on the ground, completely dazed by what happened. The prisoner just stands there silently, watching his former ally on the ground. Getting up with difficulty, Gale can't believe a filthy heretic attacked him. He wonders how anyone dares to harm a servant of God and picks up his spear. Kadam thinks that a paladin is still a paladin, and that wouldn't be enough to finish him. The tip of the knight's spear glows with a golden light, ready for the next move. Weapon in hand, the blonde guy prepares to strike back with all his divine power. Our hero watches and realizes the young man is about to use a special skill. Gale then starts a prayer to Elga, the master of eternal light, asking for strength. A divine light descends from the sky, bathing the paladin in overwhelming energy. In the name of Elga, he sentences the heretic, promising to end him once and for all. With that, the knight charges with his spear glowing with divine strength. He runs toward our protagonist, who is standing near the prisoner wagon. Facing the attack, the barbarian realizes that the skill is quite powerful. With his current powerless body, he knows he won't be able to dodge in time. The beam of light advances at high speed, ready to pulverize its target. The explosion destroys our hero's shackles and the wagon behind him. As the dust settles, the protagonist is revealed standing amidst the wreckage. Sitting on the destroyed wagon, the warrior's chest glows where the blow landed. The paladin approaches in shock, unable to believe the prisoner is still alive. He says the barbarian is as tough as he is ugly and moves in slowly. The protagonist thinks that even with a reset, his berserker skill is still active. He reflects that it wouldn't be so hard if there were at least one weak demon nearby. With that in mind, he starts thinking of a way to escape this messy situation. But suddenly, the warrior catches a familiar scent from the wagon's remains. Gale approaches and admits the barbarian is strong but says this is the end. The paladin tells the prisoner to seek Elga's forgiveness as he passes on. At that moment, the blonde knight's face fills with shock and disgust. He covers his nose and complains about a foul smell that suddenly filled the air. Our hero just looks at him and starts laughing loudly and mockingly. The knight asks what's so funny and if the barbarian lost his mind before departing. The big guy says that the god Elga they worship seems to have picked him as a favorite. After saying that, he punches the wagon wood, breaking it with ease. From the wreckage, he pulls out the head of a goblin that was hidden inside. The paladin keeps his hand on his nose, watching the bizarre scene. The cross-shaped mark on our hero's chest continues to glow intensely. With a sinister smile, the warrior seems to have a very good plan in mind. He then holds the monster's remains, ready to use his unique power. Without hesitation, the barbarian tips the creature's head and drinks the fluid. The paladin and the other soldiers watch, completely shocked and speechless. Gale clenches his fists, thinking the heretic went mad for drinking demon essence. He points to one of the guards and tells him to finish the man off. A red aura emanates from the protagonist's body as the soldier approaches. The guard is shaking with fear and can barely hold his spear properly. Despite his terror, the soldier advances to obey his leader's order. But the barbarian is faster and grabs the man's face with brutal force. Our hero's hand squeezes so hard that the soldier's helmet starts to bend. The guard screams in pain as he is lifted off the ground by his face alone. With a weak, fearful voice, the soldier begs for his life to be spared. Squeezing even harder, the warrior completely ignores the pleas for mercy. The blonde paladin watches the scene, horrified and not knowing what to do. The warrior then takes the man out with a single, brutal, and swift strike. He thinks the demon was weak and only gave a small buff, but it's enough. With this power, he knows he can escape the prisoner procession. The red aura grows more intense as the protagonist screams that it's more than enough. The remaining soldiers are terrified and tremble at the sight. One of them calls the barbarian a monster and panic begins to spread. The guards drop their weapons, completely intimidated by his strength. Without a second thought, the soldiers and other prisoners start running away. But Gale yells for them not to retreat and to form a line to subdue the prisoner. The paladin warns that anyone fleeing will be severely punished by military law. He thinks that if the soldiers land a spear hit, he will definitely be finished. The protagonist uses the goblin remains as a weapon and hurls them at Gale. The impact knocks the knight down again, leaving him very dazed. The blonde hero lies on the ground in pain, unable to get back up. He looks to the side and sees the demon remains, wondering how this happened. Gale struggles to his feet and glares at the barbarian with pure hatred. The young paladin can't believe the prisoner is actually getting away. With his berserker power active, our hero runs off at high speed. The knight kneels and prepares to use his divine skill once again. He prays to Elga once more, asking for power to defeat this servant of evil. His eyes glow with golden light as his body emanates a powerful aura. The paladin then launches a powerful golden energy beam at the fugitive. With a battle cry, he swears he will do this in the name of his deity. The light attack hits the protagonist directly, causing a golden explosion. The blonde guy smiles, thinking this is the end for the heretic barbarian. To his surprise, the warrior catches the attack with his bare hands and glares. The paladin is completely shocked and speechless at the unbelievable sight. Our hero then crushes the blade of light without showing any pain. With incredible strength, he shatters the paladin's skill with one punch. With his other hand, he punches the knight so hard he's sent flying. The punch is so strong that the knight is dragged across the ground by the impact. With a dripping fist, the barbarian stands tall while the paladin begs him to stop. With a bruised face, Gale admits he was wrong and begs for mercy just this once. The protagonist looks down at the fallen man, who is desperately pleading for his life. He turns his back as if to leave while the blonde guy offers his thanks, but the paladin curses him in his mind, swearing the brainless barbarian will pay. Lying on the grass, the knight breathes heavily while recovering from the attack. He promises revenge in Elga's name, but suddenly notices something is off. A spear is stuck in the ground right in front of him, and he doesn't know why. To his horror, the protagonist is walking back toward him, dragging a weapon. The blonde knight is completely shocked and speechless at the scene. His eyes widen in pure fear because he knows his time is up. The big guy picks up the spear, noticing the man is still praying to his god. He raises the weapon and says he hopes the paladin joins his god in the afterlife. Panicked, the knight asks the warrior to wait with a trembling voice. But the barbarian doesn't listen and brings the spear down with all his might. The strike pierces the paladin and the old man he hit earlier, pinning them together. With a dirty face, the protagonist stands in silence observing the result. He then turns his gaze toward the soldiers who are running away. The men run desperately to escape the monster who defeated the paladin. Our hero remembers an important lesson from his first playthrough. The soldiers keep running breathlessly, not looking back for a second. One of them is exhausted, but adrenaline keeps him moving to stay alive. The guard thinks he's safe until a spear grazes his helmet. Several spears fall from the sky, hitting all the soldiers trying to escape. The lesson was simple and never leave any loose ends behind, no matter what. One guard managed to hide in a bush and is shaking with fear. He covers his own mouth to stay quiet, praying he isn't discovered. But the protagonist looks directly at the spot where the soldier is hiding. With a perfect throw, the warrior sends a spear flying toward the bush. The weapon travels with deadly precision toward the last escaping soldier. In an instant, the spear finds its mark, and the man lets out a final cry. With the area clear, the protagonist turns to the remaining prisoners to talk. An older man approaches and praises the warrior's strength against the paladin. The man starts to say something about the shackles but is cut off by a fatal blow. The attack is so brutal that the man had no chance to react or defend himself. The other prisoners are covered in the aftermath and stare at the scene in terror. Our hero remembers that lesson from his first life once again. Seeing this, the men start to back away, fearing what will happen next. The lesson was very clear: never leave any loose ends behind, just like before. Terror is visible on the face of every single prisoner left there. One of them desperately asks why the barbarian is doing this. Without answering, the big guy grabs another prisoner who begs him to stop. But with eyes red with fury, the warrior ignores the pleas for mercy. After a while, he stands in silence looking at the result of his actions. The field is now covered with the remains of every prisoner he encountered. He thinks that if he left them alive, they would surely talk about what they saw. In the worst case, an elite paladin unit would be sent to hunt him down. With a stained spear in hand, he knows he can't take that kind of risk. In the middle of the chaos, the man who claimed to be innocent is huddled and crying. The prisoner is completely terrified and hopeless, hidden in the woods. But the protagonist finds him and approaches with a spear, ready to strike. Our hero says coldly that this man is the very last one left. He prepares the final blow without any hesitation or remorse. The prisoner screams that it's unfair and trembles, unable to flee. On his knees, he begs for his life, swearing he did nothing wrong. The warrior then asks the man for a single reason to spare him. The man says he has a wife and son waiting and that he was set up. The protagonist says he looks innocent, but that won't save him now. In a final act of despair, the prisoner screams a mysterious word, "ETHGID." Desperate, the prisoner asks if the big guy doesn't need a guide. The protagonist is surprised and repeats the man's words. The man says he is a traveling merchant and knows the region's geography well. Our hero then remembers the man mentioned an empire, but he knew Lucania as a kingdom. The merchant is confused by the question and doesn't understand. He thinks the barbarian came from beyond the mountains and lost contact with the continent. The protagonist notices the silence and asks if he doesn't know the answer. The guide says 248 years have passed since the empire started. The warrior asks what the year is according to the old solar lunar calendar. The man says they don't use it anymore, but guesses it would be the year 1130. The protagonist is shocked since the once common calendar is now considered ancient. He then asks about the continent, Elga's church, and the demon realm. The guide explains that Lucania unified the continent 300 years ago, but it's divided now. He adds that the church grew in power and that no one returns from the demon realm alive. Our hero is surprised that no one has managed to return from the demon realm. He then asks if the man has heard the names Gale, Melissa, Gordon, or Cyril. The merchant fearfully replies that he has never heard those names before. But suddenly he remembers something and seems to recognize the name Melissa. The guide says he might have heard that name somewhere but isn't sure. He tries to remember and mentions similar names like Elisa or Melissa, looking confused. The protagonist finds it odd that the heroes who defeated the archdemon were forgotten. With all this new information, he stays silent, trying to make sense of it all. He asks why demons are everywhere, but the guide doesn't have the answer. Some say it's divine punishment, others say an archmage opened a portal to hell. But the truth likely only exists in the eyes of the all-powerful God in the clouds. The protagonist remains silent, processing everything he just heard. After thinking for a while, he firmly sticks his spear into the ground. The guide doesn't understand and wonders what the big guy is planning now. Without another word, our hero starts walking away, leaving the man behind. From the merchant's words, he realizes he is 300 years ahead of his first journey. He thinks he was kicked out of his world and is now in exile in this one too. His old companions he just left behind are now nothing but dust. With a serious look, he realizes everyone he knew is long gone. He wonders if there's a reason to live, repeating this endless cycle and fighting madness. Plus, there's no guarantee he can return to reality even if he reaches the end again. By the grace of the cursed god, it's new game plus now, and who knows what's next. The protagonist closes his eyes, seeming to have made a very difficult decision. With his hands, he takes a tree branch and snaps it in half with all his strength. The guide, watching from afar, is completely confused by the warrior's action. Our hero then points the sharp end of the broken branch at his own neck. He prepares to end it all right there, no longer caring about the consequences. The guide is terrified and asks what the Lord is trying to do. He thinks if he restarts this journey, he'll only have regrets, and now is the time to end it. With force, he presses the sharp wood against his skin, ready for the final move. He only hopes that what awaits him isn't an endless, game-over screen. But suddenly, he closes his eyes and seems to remember something important. A memory of his old friend Melissa, the mage, pops into his mind. He remembers how she wanted to teach others and build a tower for something. Suddenly, his eyes snap open as if he remembered a vital detail. He grabs the guide and asks urgently if he's heard the name Melissa. The merchant says he isn't sure but thinks the first tower master had a name like that. Our hero then holds the man and asks where this magic tower is located. The guide explains it's in Vistana and would take about 2 months to get there. The protagonist stays silent for a moment, thinking about his next move. He then remembers Melissa's smile and realizes he can't leave just yet. He orders the merchant to guide him to the magic tower by the fastest route. The man complains, saying he has a family and can't be a guide. Our hero understands, but as payment he offers the most precious thing he has. The warrior says coldly that the payment for the help will be the guide's own life. With a look of terror, the merchant can't believe what he just heard. The warrior tells the guide to find the key, get what he needs, and leave immediately. In the wreckage, the big guy finds a longsword that could be useful for the trip. He thinks the weapon isn't special, but it can be forged with his unique skill. The young man regrets not taking the paladin spear since special weapons reject him. He then remembers with longing the axe he used in his first game adventure. The guide, Duncan, also thinks of the axe but is relieved to be alive. To the merchant's horror, the barbarian fills a canteen with goblin fluid. Equipped with a sword and his special juice, he readies himself for the trip. With everything ready, our hero calls his new guide and says it's time to go. And so, the two begin their long journey toward the mysterious magic tower. Meanwhile, at the site of the massacre, sinister crows feed on the remains. A new group of paladins arrives and finds the body of young Linton Polyphus. A knight reports the total wipeout and asks what the next step is. The group's leader, Lady Helm, seems to be in total command of the scene. She orders her subordinate Ethan to look for any clues that might help the search. The knight agrees immediately, and the leader thinks he's pathetic but keeps it to herself. She wonders who dared to do this to a paladin of the archbishop. With a furious look, the knight swears that whoever did this will pay dearly. Night falls, and the full moon lights up the sky with a pale, sinister glow. Far away, our protagonist and his guide camp to rest during the dark night. The campfire that warmed them begins to slowly fade as the hours pass. The warrior sleeps peacefully while the merchant remains wide awake. Next to the camp, the guide's backpack and belongings are tossed aside. The guide takes advantage of the barbarian sleeping and tries to flee into the forest. He runs as fast as he can, breathless and desperate to escape that monster. Even exhausted, the man keeps running, thinking he's finally free from danger. His only goal is to get as far as possible from that scary barbarian. He remembers thinking that having a companion would be good for the trip. But the problem was his companion was a barbarian who drinks demon fluid and wipes out men. After observing him for days, he offers food, fearing he might be next. The guide offers a warm spot by the fire for the warrior to rest. He tries to start a conversation but gives up, fearing the barbarian's reaction. The man notices the big guy barely speaks and forbids any useless questions. To the merchant, he doesn't seem human but like a wild, unpredictable beast. Feeling like his head was in a lion's mouth wasn't even the worst part. There was another problem the guide faced, and it was much worse than fear. The protagonist watches the huffing man and says coldly that he is too slow. The real issue was the barbarian's insane marching speed that the guide couldn't handle. Even as a traveling salesman used to walking, he couldn't keep up the pace. The warrior simply kept going and the guide had to run just to stay close. When he finally caught up, the big guy just stared as if he were a threat. The merchant felt that if he fell behind, the barbarian would finish him off without pity. He wonders if the man's legs are made of steel to handle so much effort. Breaking into a cold sweat and panting, the guide feels like he's about to pass out. With all this in mind, he decides he must escape that situation no matter what. So he uses the night to flee through the woods while the warrior sleeps. The chance came sooner than he expected, and he feels safe in the dark. Suddenly, he feels a sharp pain in his chest and stops running immediately. He realizes that in his rush to escape, he left his backpack behind. The man is desperate since going back might wake the sleeping beast. Even if it's a waste, he decides his life is more precious than his gear. After running for a while, he stops and realizes he is completely lost. He then decides he'll figure out where he is and finally be free. But out of nowhere, a voice asks where he's going in such a rush, scaring him. The guide turns around and can't believe it. The barbarian is right there. The protagonist then asks why he was running off in the middle of the night. With a threatening look, he asks if the guide no longer wants his payment. The merchant turns white with fear and stammers, not knowing what to say. He throws himself to the ground and begs for forgiveness for his mistake. The man bows and apologizes, saying he should never have forgotten his gratitude. The protagonist says he doesn't want apologies, just the reason or he'll run again. With a serious look, the warrior demands to know why he tried to escape. Terrified, the merchant starts sweating and tries to find the words. Stuttering, he explains that the big guy's walking speed is way too fast for him. The guide adds that if he kept trying to keep up, he would eventually drop dead. Fallen on the ground, the man closes his eyes, thinking this is his end. The protagonist stays silent for a moment, processing the guide's explanation. To the man's surprise, the barbarian just orders them to go back to camp. Kaden then warns that from now on he will walk a bit slower. With that, the warrior turns and walks back under the moonlight, leaving the guide behind. The merchant is completely confused by his companion's unexpected reaction. The scene shifts back to the campfire burning in the dark of night. Back at camp, our hero watches the guide, who is now sleeping near the fire. Even asleep, the man has nightmares and mumbles, begging for forgiveness. The warrior stays silent, reflecting on his own actions. He thinks his fast pace is a habit from his very first journey. Back then, every moment was urgent, and he felt like he was being hunted. He remembers the hell where food and rest were luxuries, and he pushed everyone hard. The big guy lets out a tired sigh, remembering those difficult times. He reflects that it isn't so dangerous now, but he still fears the monsters. By morning, our hero thinks he found a good reason to slow down. The guide points to a side and suggests a detour since the border is having trouble. Our protagonist agrees, and the merchant looks very relieved. With the decision made, the guide is calmer, and they continue the trip. The warrior thinks that even with a map, it's 300 years old and he needs help. Duncan explains that paladins hunt heretics and he'll only be safe in the City Alliance. The barbarian wonders if paladins are why he doesn't see many demons around. He looks at his canteen and realizes the demon fluid will soon spoil, so he needs more. Night falls again and the duo continues through the dark, thick forest. Suddenly, the guide stops and points ahead to a village he spotted. He says it looks like a farming village and suggests asking for food and a place to stay. Our hero just watches the village from a distance with a serious, suspicious look. But the merchant notices something off. Not a single light is on in the whole place. To make it worse, the gate is open with no guards, even though it's dinner time. The guide wonders if it's abandoned, but the warrior says they have to check. Terrified, the man asks if he's really going in, warning there might be a monster. The village is shown completely silent and empty, making everything feel sinister. The merchant is shocked as the protagonist walks right in without fear. Our hero grips his sword, thinking of the possibility of finding a demon. Without hesitation, he draws his weapon, ready for whatever is in the dark village. With a smirk, the warrior says that if there's a monster, it's actually good news. The big guy enters the village, and his guide follows fearfully and slowly. The merchant asks if it's empty and notes the place doesn't look abandoned. Silently, the protagonist continues through the empty streets, observing everything. Suddenly, he stops and stays silent as if he's noticed something. Startled, the guide asks why his lord stopped walking. The warrior notices that only one house has an open door and finds it suspicious. At that moment, a strange foot steps out of the dark house, scaring the duo. A creature that looks like a goblin emerges screaming and charges with a weapon. It has a wild look, and its red eyes glow in the darkness of the night. But with a quick move, our hero uses his sword to finish the creature off. The strike is so precise the monster doesn't even react before falling lifeless. The guide screams in terror as the body falls right in front of him. To his despair, another monster foot steps out of the dark house. From inside the house, a group of angry goblins emerges to attack the intruders. The warrior says goblins aren't usually aggressive and something must have changed them. With a confident smile, he thinks he's finally in the right place for his mission. One monster charges with a club, screaming and ready to crush its target. Our hero strikes back so fast he leaves a trail of blue light in the air. The other goblins are completely shocked by his speed and strength. With sword in hand, the big guy prepares for combat against the green monsters. A goblin screams and charges with a knife, ready to attack without hesitation. The protagonist counters with a spinning strike that leaves a trail of blue light. In a blink, the warrior cuts the monsters down without giving them a chance. Another goblin with an axe charges, trying to avenge its friends. Our hero blocks the attack with his sword, creating a shower of sparks. With a quick move, he deflects the weapon and prepares his counter-attack. Without wasting time, the fighter hits the goblin square in the chest. The creature looks at the sword in its chest, unable to believe what happened. It screams in pain as the warrior's attack finishes it for good. The protagonist observes the remains on the ground with a focused look. With the monsters defeated, the guide asks if the fight is finally over. Still terrified, the merchant asks if it's the end, but our hero isn't sure. Suddenly, a noise from one of the houses scares the guide, who trembles. A goblin hand appears at a doorway, revealing another enemy. A giant goblin emerges holding something, looking badly wounded and in pain. The guide is shocked to see the creature is holding a little girl hostage. The giant monster screams in fury, ready to attack with the child. The protagonist hurls his sword with incredible precision at the monster. The weapon flies fast and hits the creature right in the forehead. The blow is so accurate that the sword stays stuck in the giant monster's head. With the impact, the creature falls and lets go of the little girl. The guide screams in fear, asking what if the Lord had hit the child. Our hero simply replies coldly that such a thing would never happen. He then approaches the little girl and carefully unties her hands. With a serious tone, the warrior talks to the girl, who's still in shock. She looks at him with tears in her eyes, and he says he has questions. The guide tries to calm her with a doll, saying they aren't bad people. He offers a sweet, saying it's dried licorice and will help her calm down. The little girl accepts the gift and starts to eat, looking a bit better. The warrior praises the guide for being good with kids while watching them. The merchant shyly explains he has a son the same age at home. Our protagonist stays silent, observing the interaction between the two. Eating the sweet, the small girl calls for her mother in a weak voice. The guide cheers up and promises they'll help her find her parents. With tears in her eyes, the girl says her parents abandoned her there. The fighter is surprised by the reveal and realizes how serious this is. Duncan is shocked and asks if her parents were the ones who tied her up. The big guy then understands everything and mutters to himself about it. Suddenly, a voice screams the girl's name, and everyone turns to look. A group of villagers arrives with torches, a woman in front looking desperate. The woman runs to the girl, hugging her tight and calling her name. Crying with relief, the mother thanks the gods her daughter is safe. But the other villagers are terrified seeing the pile of defeated monsters. One man approaches and asks the warrior if he was the one who did all this. The protagonist pulls his sword from a monster's head and says he didn't. With the stained weapon in hand, he adds that it was his blade that did the work. He glares at the villagers and asks why they sacrificed their own daughter. The men stay silent and ashamed, not knowing what to say to him. One explains the forest was full of goblins, so they moved here. Inside a house, he adds that the goblins started attacking the village. The creatures were fierce and many villagers lost their lives. So the men gather to try and end the monsters once and for all. But in the cave, they found a scary red demonic creature. The villager says they weren't strong enough to fight the demon and goblins. Hopeless, they surrendered to the creature, begging for their lives. But the demon gave a terrible order, a sacrifice from every family. The guide is revolted and asks if other kids were taken, calling them crazy. A man snaps back that they couldn't leave or they'd starve without the harvest. Losing patience, our hero punches the man who is arguing. The warrior then asks how many horns the creature in the cave had. The man is confused and says the monster didn't have any horns. Our protagonist stays silent, processing this new bit of info. He takes his sword and orders the villagers to lead him to the cave. The man doesn't understand and asks where the big guy wants to be taken. With a serious look, the fighter asks where else they would go. He says very clearly that they are going straight to the red monster's lair. A villager lights a torch, preparing to guide them through the dark night. And so, our hero and his guide follow the villagers through the thick forest. The group leader apologizes, saying they have nothing to pay him with. The warrior says he's doing this for his own reasons and wants no reward. The man is relieved and thanks the mercenary for the unexpected help. But the protagonist says he'll take an axe as payment, and the villager agrees. After a long walk, they finally reach the entrance of the demon's cave. With torches lighting the way, they stop at the scary creature's lair. Now armed with an axe, our hero prepares to enter and face the monster. but the villagers say they're going back, fearing more goblin attacks. The guide is shocked and asks if they only came this far to be guides. The warrior says cowards are in the way and tells the merchant to bring the light. The guide is speechless. He didn't expect he'd have to go inside. With no choice, he follows the protagonist into the dark, sinister den. The merchant asks why the Lord isn't criticizing the villagers' cowardice. Our hero asks if the guide has ever faced a live demon before. The man says no, having only seen demon remains on the black market. The warrior explains that a human who faces a demon directly is never the same. He says fear crushes the soul, leaving only the desperate need to survive. The guide still doesn't like it, saying even beasts protect their young. The protagonist says they made a choice to survive and shouldn't be judged. But the merchant argues that for the kids, it's like the world abandoned them. He wonders what the point of living is if you have to give up your humanity. The guide turns to the serious protagonist and calls to him, a bit worried. He reflects that the villagers are more human than he is, since he's used to the fight. The merchant asks if the Lord thinks the kidnapped kids are still alive. The warrior closes his eyes for a moment, thinking about the answer. He explains that if the demon is cruel but smart, he kept the kids alive. The guide is shocked and doesn't get the logic as the hero readies his axe. Without more words, the big guy advances with weapon in hand, ready to attack. Suddenly, the fighter hurls his axe into the darkness of the cave. The guide screams, startled by his companion's sudden action. The weapon flies fast, spinning toward a target they can't see yet. The axe hits its mark, and the sound of impact echoes through the dark cave. Our hero extends his hand, waiting for something to return to him. A goblin emerges from the dark with the warrior's axe stuck in its head. It screams in pain, stumbling forward and revealing more creatures behind it. With the axe back in hand, several other red-eyed goblins appear. The guide screams in terror, seeing the horde emerge from the shadows. Our protagonist tells the merchant to keep the torch steady for the fight. Without wasting time, the warrior plants his feet and charges the monsters. A goblin tries to attack with a knife, but the big guy is way faster. The fighter dodges and grabs the monster's arm with incredible strength. The grip is so tight that the creature's arm bone snaps instantly. With them distracted, he uses one as a shield and charges the others. Our hero notices something and uses his sword to lean against a stalagmite. He sees the low ceiling and rocks will make using his weapons difficult. The remaining goblins watch, waiting for the right moment to strike. The warrior wraps a cloth around his sword handle for a better grip. With his weapon ready, a massive new horde of goblins appears, screaming. He hurls the sword with incredible precision at the green monsters. It hits a goblin right in the forehead, finishing it with one blow. Amidst the chaos, the fighter continues his sweep, taking out many at once. With a blood-stained face, the warrior glares at the last monster standing. He thinks he should use the axe he got for the next part of the fight. Without wasting a second, the fighter picks up his new weapon for the sweep. With a single blow, he hits a monster's head with all his might. In the middle of the horde, the big guy continues without giving them a break. The creatures have no chance and fall one by one before his fury. The strike is so precise it cuts a goblin in two with no effort at all. In seconds, a monster's head rolls across the dark cave floor. Watching from afar, the guide is shocked and breaking into a cold sweat. He can't believe his companion defeated all those monsters alone. Seeing his strength, the remaining goblins scream in fear and try to flee. The merchant warns the Lord that the enemies are trying to escape, but our hero says they'll follow, as the monsters will lead them to the demon. The duo continues deeper into the cave, following the fugitives. The guide notes the path that seemed narrow is opening into a large hall. He wonders if this is the goblin base since the walls look carved. Suddenly, the protagonist sniffs the air as if he caught a strange scent. He warns the guide to be careful because a demon is nearby. The fighter tells him to stay back but not to run, or the goblins will hunt him. With a serious look, the warrior prepares to face the cave boss. In a quick move, he advances with his sword, leaving a blue trail. The big guy plants his feet and prepares to attack with all his strength. He spins his axe with incredible force, ready to finish the final enemy. But suddenly, the hero is on the ground and the guide screams his name. The red creature glares and says it's never seen him, as he's no villager. With a sinister smile, the demon finds the situation very interesting. Our protagonist thinks it's a bad spot, as things are different than he heard. He notices the creature has small horns that are slowly growing. Realizing the danger, the warrior gets furious and prepares to fight hard. And so, the demon advances with its claws and the final battle begins. The monster says it likes humans because they are weak and obey well. Our hero thinks he missed the enemy's move and only blocked by instinct. He realizes the creature's strength and speed aren't from a weak demon. It complains that he took out many goblins and should beg for forgiveness. The fighter reflects that elite demons are much harder than weak ones. With a sinister smile, the red monster says it'll give him a chance. The creature orders the big guy to stop using one of his arms immediately. It tells the man to use his axe to tear off his own arm and eat it. Our hero knows that in his current state, a mid-level demon is a tough fight. But he notices the horns aren't fully grown yet, so he has a chance. The monster gets annoyed and asks why the human isn't obeying. The warrior sticks his sword in the ground and says the enemy has said enough. He takes his canteen and says he doesn't take orders from a walking bag of fluids. Without hesitation, the fighter uses his sword to pierce the canteen and pour it out. The creature is shocked by the scent and wonders how a human has that. The protagonist drinks the fluid to activate his unique power. After finishing it, he tosses the empty canteen, preparing to transform. A red aura starts to emanate from our hero's body as he fills with power. He screams with all his might as demonic energy runs through him. The red monster just watches, completely shocked and confused. The warrior's eyes turn red and his expression shifts to pure fury. He thinks the trick is old but works, and he needs to be fast now. The creature can't believe a weak human got so much power out of nowhere. Furious, the demon screams it will finish him right there and then. The creature charges with its claws, ready to end it with a fatal blow. The protagonist thinks the demon's judgment is clouded by its horns. The monster swings its arm, attacking with sharp claws in a fast move. With enhanced reflexes, our hero manages to dodge the dangerous strike. The fighter uses his axe to defend, and the combat gets even more intense. The demon screams in fury, seeing its attack blocked by the transformed warrior. The protagonist notices his axe is cracked from the previous impact. He knows the blade will break but is ready to fight with his bare hands. The red creature roars in fury, showing sharp claws ready for the attack. The demon screams it will never forgive the human who challenged it. With red eyes glowing, the warrior prepares for the next move. Facing the monster head-on, the fighter prepares to strike back with everything. He advances with his sword in an arc of red energy and destruction. The blow hits the creature square on, creating sparks and a scream of pain. With the impact, the demon is thrown back, unable to steady itself. The creature is shocked by his strength and trembles at what happened. Our hero takes the chance and readies his axe for another devastating hit. The blow is so strong the axe and sword shatter upon hitting the enemy. Weapon shards fly everywhere with the intensity of the clash. The demon is shocked by the human's power and doesn't get his strength. Screaming in fury, the creature charges at high speed for a desperate hit. It tries to hit the protagonist's face with its sharp claws in hate, but the warrior is faster and counters with a punch that stops the attack. The creature is thrown back and slides across the floor from the force. The fighter prepares for the next attack with what's left of his sword. The monster looks at the warrior with surprise and a bit of fear. With his red aura, our hero spins, creating a whirlwind of power. He screams with all his might, preparing the final blow to end the fight. Seeing the danger, the demon tries to retreat and screams for him to be stopped. The protagonist's attack hits the ground, launching stones at the monster. Fallen on the ground, the creature screams while our hero stands over it. The demon asks, terrified, what on earth the warrior really is. With a look of pure hate, the protagonist asks if it doesn't think he's human. His red eyes glow intensely, showing the power in his veins. The creature concludes he's a monster in human skin and screams in terror. In a last effort, the demon charges for a final desperate attack. The demon lands a powerful punch, sending our hero flying from the impact. The creature thinks it's being beaten and its attacks are being blocked. Suddenly, the monster is terrified and screams for something to get away. It's looking at the guide, who is surrounded by goblins and using a torch. Duncan screams for them to stay back, asking if they want to feel the fire. The torch burns with a bright orange flame, scaring the monsters. The demon gets an idea, realizing the fire is the key to victory. Our hero sees the monster's plan and notices where it's going. Without wasting time, he picks up a broken axe handle from the floor. With the handle in one hand, he picks up the axe blade lying nearby. With the improvised weapon, he says he knows exactly what it's trying to do. With a look of fury, he vows he won't let the demon get what it wants. The red aura around him gets stronger as he holds the weapon tight. He decides he will simply crush the ground the monster is standing on. With a battle cry, the fighter brings down the axe with massive force. The demon is completely shocked by the warrior's unexpected attack. The axe spins in the air at incredible speed, creating a trail of light. The impact is so strong that the cave floor breaks into pieces. The guide is terrified and the goblins nearby look very confused. The red creature loses its balance and falls into the wreckage. A big explosion of dust and rocks rises from the axe impact site. In the dust, our hero's sword falls and sticks into the floor. The demon screams in pain about dust in its eyes and can't see anything. Taking the chance, the warrior advances with his broken sword. With a precise strike, he hits the creature's eye, making it scream. It screams in pain while the protagonist holds the sword steady. With a smirk, our hero says the demon's face looks much better now. The monster vows to kill him, but the warrior pushes the blade deeper. He's surprised it's still alive even with its head pierced. With a firm grip, he prepares to finish the monster for good. The warrior says the creature is a nuisance and readies the end. The demon screams in pain and begs the fighter to stop the attack. Ignoring it, our hero spins and prepares the final mercy blow. With a quick move, he uses the monster's body to jump upward. The creature roars one last time as the warrior's hit lands square on. The blow is so powerful the demon's head is taken out in a final burst. With the fight over, the protagonist notes his power buff is still active. He's relieved he didn't have to face it without his full power. Suddenly, he hears a strange voice and turns to see what's going on. The remaining goblins are shocked and calling for their fallen king. The protagonist realizes their ferocity dropped after the demon fell. But he holds his sword tight, knowing the fight isn't over yet. Without hesitation, he advances and finishes a goblin with one blow. He says the creatures have become monsters, and he will end them all. A goblin is terrified seeing its companion's head roll on the floor. The fighter advances with his sword, ready for the final sweep. The strike is so fast the creature doesn't react before screaming in surprise. He notices one monster fleeing and another with a torch, the last one. The goblin with the torch stands in the dark, watching with red eyes. With sword in hand, our hero prepares to attack the last enemy. He advances at high speed, and the guide screams his name in despair. The merchant screams for his lord, completely terrified by everything. The warrior's eyes are wide, appearing to be in total fury. The protagonist's sword stops right at the guide's neck, who is shaking. The merchant closes his eyes, sweating and thinking it's the end. Our hero then holds the guide's torch and glares with an intimidating look. The fighter stays silent, just observing the terrified man. The guide asks if he's okay, and the warrior apologizes for his attitude. He tells the guide they'll finish the goblins and rescue the kids. The merchant agrees, stuttering, still scared of what almost happened. Mission done, the duo goes deeper into the cave with the demon's remains. Back in the village, residents are shocked that the kids return. In an emotional reunion, parents hug their kids with tears of relief. A villager thanks the mercenary carrying the defeated creature. An old lady approaches and offers chicken stew to the great warrior. But he refuses, saying she should give the food to the children. The fighter tells his guide to eat with them while he rests a bit. The merchant watches his companion walk away, appearing thoughtful. Then he notices a child's expression, looking completely traumatized. Seeing that, he looks worried and starts thinking about the situation. Suddenly, he seems to have understood something and gets terrified. In the cave, the kids were terrified, repeating strange words. Our hero explains they were brainwashed since they were caught. The main message was that their parents had abandoned them forever. Also, they were told they were the most useless kids in the world. The process was so strong not even a priest could stand the torture. The warrior says it was a reinforcement of what really happened. The guide despairs, asking why a demon would do something so awful. With a cold smile, the fighter says that's just a demon's nature. The merchant stays silent, not knowing what to say to that. He finally gets what the Lord meant about a less cruel demon. Duncan asks if the kids can recover if parents take care of them. The big guy says it isn't impossible, but doubts the parents are capable. Suddenly, the guide is startled because the protagonist is leaving. He asks him to rest, but the man says witnesses have already appeared. The fighter explains they'll never ignore a paladin being taken out. The guide remembers the barbarian finished a paladin without hesitation. With a serious look, our hero warns they need to leave quickly. Elsewhere, the blonde knight and her soldiers keep investigating. With a determined look, she seems ready to hunt the culprit at any cost. The fighter squeezes the creature's remains for demon fluid. He fills his canteen with the fluid in front of the villagers. He thinks half a canteen is enough for an emergency, and he's done here. A villager approaches and asks what he'll do with the body. The warrior says he doesn't need it and tells the man to burn it. The villager is confused, wondering why he'd toss something so valuable. He thinks if he keeps it to sell to a paladin, he could make a profit. The protagonist warns that if they don't burn it, the smell will bring monsters. With a serious look, he asks if they want another goblin invasion. Terrified, the villagers stutter and say they'll burn everything now. They agree to burn the creature's remains right away without complaint. An old lady approaches to thank the mercenary once more. She says they gathered items to thank him for saving the kids. The protagonist stays silent, then says he'll make good use of them. Without wasting time, he puts on the new boots he received. He also puts on the new belt, which looks very tough and high quality. The guide says the gear is decent, and the warrior says it's time to go. But suddenly he feels a sharp pain in his chest and stops walking. The guide is confused, and the fighter notes the paladin's wound hasn't healed. He thinks his body heals fast from demons, but this one won't close. He realizes that Paladin's spear was a special consecrated weapon. Meanwhile, Lady Helia continues her investigation at the site. Her subordinate Ethan says he found no clues, and she calls him pathetic. She tells him to deduce the intent from the evidence there. The soldier asks if she has a suspect or knows the group. She gets angry and yells about spirits, telling him to use that as a clue. She continues the lecture, saying that's why he never went up in rank. The soldier thinks she's arrogant but knows he can't talk back. This is Archpaladin Hilly Muno, who rose up by subduing 20 demons. She's the youngest Archpaladin, and though she's awful, her skills are real. The soldier thinks it's frustrating, but a mere paladin is no match for her. He accepts the situation, but his leader suddenly stops and turns. With a serious look, she orders Ethan to get the sacred relic. The knight is shocked and asks if she means the twin mirrors of Damien. The relic is a pair of mirrors for past and future, but one is broken. The leader yells that's what it's for and threatens him with the archbishop. She calms him, saying it won't break unless it reflects an archdemon. With no choice, the soldier hands her the star-shaped relic. The knight kneels and positions the magic mirror in front of her. The artifact glows with intense white light, ready to be used. A purple and pink light comes from the mirror, showing a vision. They see our hero drinking demon fluid and fighting brutally. The leader and her soldier watch in shock, not understanding. The warrior's eyes in the vision glow red with intense fury. Suddenly, the sacred mirror cracks and shatters on the ground. The two paladins are speechless, seeing the sacred relic destroyed. The soldier says it's impossible, as it only breaks for an archdemon-level being. Terrified, he suggests they return to the sacred city to report. But the leader smiles, saying since the culprit is revealed, they won't go back. She declares they'll keep searching, and the soldier is shocked. The knight draws her golden sword, preparing for the hunt. A blue aura comes from her as she readies for battle with a smile. With a determined look, she vows to eliminate the demon in human skin. Far away, the guide is by a river, looking very sad and thoughtful. He thinks of the kids and worries for them, remembering his own son. The merchant shakes his head to clear the negative thoughts. He decides to pull himself together to go home and stay by the barbarian. Back at camp, he finds our hero already lying by the fire. With food ready, he approaches and asks why the lord is lying down. The guide is completely confused by the situation there. He screams for his lord, who is shaking and sweating on the ground. He doesn't get how someone who tears demons can be like that. Duncan notices the chest wound and asks what happened to it. The warrior thinks he should have realized about the special weapon sooner. He wonders if it had a blessing to deal fatal damage to demons. He's a berserker who uses demon fluid, so the blessing affects him. The guide laments not resting, but the warrior says it wouldn't help. The fighter asks about the moon, and the guide says it's waning. He thinks he didn't miss his window, and tonight is his chance. Suddenly, a noise from the woods scares both of them at the camp. The guide wonders where it came from, and the protagonist is on alert. Several yellow eyes emerge in the dark, and howls echo around. A fierce giant wolf appears, and the guide recognizes it as a blade wolf. The protagonist sighs tiredly but readies for the inevitable fight. He picks up his axe and sword, preparing for the upcoming clash. The warrior tells the guide to stay back, but the man is worried for him. The fighter thinks this cursed world just won't leave him alone for a bit. He glares at the wolf pack and calls them cursed mutts. Raising his axe, he says they picked a terrible time to show up. A pack of blade wolves stares down our hero with their sharp teeth ready. Gasping for air, our hero feels sweat dripping down his face from the intense pain. Moving without fear, those creatures advance toward the camp, ready to strike. One wolf suddenly charges at high speed toward the warrior with a fierce growl. Axe in hand, the fighter counters with a swift and precise spinning strike. His blow strikes the creature's head directly, sending a spray of red through the air. Such impact sends the wolf flying while the others watch the scene unfold. Our protagonist complains that his vision is shaking and he can't aim properly. Out of nowhere, two more wolves charge toward him in a coordinated attack. Sword in hand, the big guy prepares for combat against those beasts. Surrounded, he fights desperately to defend himself from every side. Combat remains intense, and the warrior struggles not to be overwhelmed. Lacking his weapons, he uses bare fists to fight back against one fierce wolf. Gripping one of the creatures tightly, he prepares for his next move. With a quick motion, he uses one wolf to knock back the rest of the pack. Staying focused, he concentrates on hand-to-hand combat against the wild animals. He seizes a wolf by the neck, taking it down with one swift, forceful snap. Another wolf tries to bite him, but the warrior retaliates with a powerful punch to its snout. Despite being wounded and outnumbered, he refuses to give up and fights with fury. One final blow finishes off another of the creatures attacking him. Exhausted, he stands among the fallen wolves, yet the fight isn't over. The remaining pack grows, preparing for a new and coordinated assault. He realizes these wolves are experienced hunters and he won't last much longer. Suddenly, he shouts for the creatures to stay away from him at that very moment. We see our guide using the campfire to try and keep those fierce animals at bay. Grabbing his canteen, the warrior thinks that drinking this now is like taking poison. Those wolves seem to notice a change in his attitude and stay on high alert. Left with no choice, he starts drinking the demonic fluid to regain his strength. After finishing it all, he slams the empty canteen down with force and determination. A red aura emanates from his body as he prepares for the end of this battle. Remaining wolves growl but seem intimidated by his transformation. His eyes glow with intense red as he stares down the pack with pure fury. In a flash, he charges forward and finishes one wolf with a well-aimed strike. Other creatures are frightened by the fighter's incredible speed and strength. Suddenly, the beasts ignore the warrior and charge toward the helpless guide. That merchant screams in terror, seeing the wolves coming at him with everything. But our hero is faster, moving quickly to intercept their attack. Now at full power, he faces the entire pack without any difficulty. He realizes his blood berserker buff changes depending on the demon he consumes. This time, the effect seems to be a massive boost to his agility and reflexes. Wrapped in a red aura, he prepares to take down every single enemy. This agility enhancement turns him into a crimson blur on the battlefield. Remembering the fast demon, he understands why the buff had this specific effect. Seeing his overwhelming strength, the remaining wolves decide it's best to flee. Our guide is surprised and shouts to the Lord, warning him that they are running. But the protagonist senses this isn't a retreat. Something else is happening. Suddenly, a giant paw stomps the ground, kicking up dust and heavy stones. Our hero takes a fighting stance while the guide hides behind him. A massive white wolf covered in scars appears, growling at our hero. Pointing at the creature, the guide says it's twice the size of the others. The warrior then realizes that monster is definitely the leader of the pack. To his misfortune, he notices his power buff is starting to fade away. As the giant wolf charges, the fighter crosses his weapons to block the impact. He wonders what kind of power this is and if the wolf wants to crush him with weight. Using all his might, he tries to resist the attack of that fierce giant. Suddenly he caws, and his axe handle breaks under the sheer pressure. Our warrior falls back, and the guide catches him before he hits the ground. Desperate, the merchant calls for his lord and asks if he's all right. He tries to wake him while using torches to keep the giant wolf at a distance. Our hero clutches the wound on his chest, which has started bleeding again. That giant wolf growls at the pair while the guide helps his lord stand up. But the protagonist looks to the sky, wondering if the conditions are finally met. With a determined look, he seems to have found exactly what he was seeking. His eyes take on a yellowish glow as he says the time has finally arrived. Midnight has come on a night where the moon has completely hidden its face. Without wasting a second, the warrior drives his sword deep into the dirt. He then begins a prayer to Athala, the undefeated master of all weaponry. As he asks his god for a blessing, the guide watches, completely confused. The fighter says that now that the eye watching the earth is closed, he discards his name. An intense golden aura flows from his body, startling the giant wolf. That massive creature seems shocked by the sudden light and doesn't understand. Our guide is also terrified, shouting and wondering what is happening. A massive pillar of golden flames rises, surrounding the protagonist. Then a mysterious voice asks what name he will grant to his blade. He thinks it's been a while since he felt such a resonance of will. With a firm gaze, he declares that his blade shall be named Mosquito. The sword then glows with intense golden light, accepting its new name. That light intensifies, and a bright red mark appears on the blade. This symbol has a strange shape and seems to hold some kind of hidden power. At that moment, he reveals his unique trait, the one who discards the name. The giant wolf roars with all its strength, ready to attack the transformed warrior. Terrified, the guide screams and calls for his lord with a trembling voice. But now at full power, our hero dodges the creature's attack with ease. The fighter runs alongside the giant beast, preparing to strike back. Suddenly, a special effect notification appears right in front of him. His sword's blade begins to emanate a dark and very sinister red aura. This aura seems to have an absorption power, spreading across the whole weapon. It is then revealed that the sword's special ability is called Life Steal. Through this, part of his life is restored, and his wounds begin to heal. The giant wolf growls in pain, glaring at the warrior with pure hatred. Still, he thinks it's not enough and challenges the beast to one more round. Roaring in pain, the giant wolf stares back with its face covered in crimson. With his new sword, our hero strikes the creature with a flash of red light. That blade shines, draining the monster's vital energy to heal its master. Consequently, all of the fighter's wounds are completely healed in an instant. He notices that even the paladin's cursed wound has vanished from his chest. With the fight over, he reflects that those wolves were a blessing in disguise. He then examines the sword and the life steal effect gained from the ritual. However, he knows the weapon is low level, so the power's efficiency is low. The warrior sighs, thinking that for now, this power will have to be enough. He reflects that enchanting weapons without materials is a huge advantage. This reminds him of a lesson learned during his very first time in the game. Hiding behind a tree, the guide asks if the battle is finally over. He can't believe the barbarian who was nearly defeated took down the whole pack. Stepping closer, he's shocked to see that all of the Lord's wounds are gone. The protagonist then asks the merchant why he didn't use the chance to run. That guide is completely baffled by the question and doesn't know what to say. Our fighter explains that if the guide had left him, he'd never have been caught. The man starts thinking about it and can't seem to explain his own actions. Suddenly, he remembers something and shouts as if he's had a breakthrough. Smiling, the warrior says the wolves would have caught him anyway. Our guide wonders if he was so worried about the barbarian that he forgot to escape. Our hero then tells the man to keep watch, as he's exhausted and needs sleep. With a stern look, he warns that if the guide flees, he'll hunt him to the world's end. Terrified, the merchant knows that from a barbarian, that is no idle threat. Thus, he spends the night awake, guarding the camp by the glowing fire. By morning, the two continue their journey, though the guide looks exhausted. Our hero mentions he'd rather not encounter any more paladins if possible. The guide points to the map, saying they'll reach Alliance territory in 10 days. He adds that the route is safe, though they might run into a few bandits. Privately, the guide thinks bandits aren't much of a threat to someone like the Lord. He then indicates a castle called Morden on the map for them to resupply. He also points out a shortcut called the Golden Road, leading to Vistana. Our hero knows the journey won't be easy, but it's better than it was before. 300 years ago, the Eastern Continent was a non-stop battlefield. Back then, no one liked outsiders, especially a giant barbarian like him. He remembers Melissa, who also gave him a cold look when they first met. That mage took notes on everything, wondering if he was some kind of criminal. A small smile forms as he recalls that random memory from his past. The guide mentions that nowadays, the City Alliance is much more peaceful. While the merchant is talking, something on the road ahead catches their eye. Suddenly, they spot a group of men who appear to be in some trouble. Our fighter asks his guide what he thinks is going on over there. The man says they look like bandits intimidating another group of travelers. The warrior suggests a detour, since nothing good comes from getting involved. But suddenly, one of those hooded men spots the pair on the road. Their leader shouts for them to come over to that spot immediately. Our hero grumbles, thinking this is a hassle he didn't want to deal with. Having little choice, they walk toward the men waiting for them. Those bandits draw their weapons, preparing for whatever comes next. Sword in hand, the big guy steps forward to meet the group of men. He stops right in front of them, staring them down with a very serious gaze. Suddenly, one man's eye flashes and he shouts at the top of his lungs. Two of the bandits seem to be making fun of a man who is with them. An older man tells the other group that those cowards are running away. The bandit leader laughs, telling them to announce that the raging horn of Agon has arrived. Our hero asks one last time what they are doing in this place. The leader turns and calls him the raging horn of Agon, which is quite odd. The warrior says he's not who they think and that he has a long journey ahead. He tells them to either move out of his way or get lost for good. Confused, the group leader asks again if he isn't the raging horn of Agon. Those men stare at each other in silence, unable to believe what they just heard. The bandit pulls out a dagger, asking who the heck he is to confuse them. With a look of pure rage, the man shouts that the protagonist is just a nobody. Our guide screams in fear at the threat, while our hero simply remains silent.